Welcome to the Regular Guys podcast, brought to you by 365 Athletics, with your hosts Zeke Prado, Gary Rona, Jude Oliva, coming to you live from La Mirada. Let's go!
He can edit it, right? And you post it, or when you go live, it's already on there.
Yeah, so if we want to start going live...
Why don't we just record it, and then you can edit it, and then post it after it's recorded?
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. But I think... I really like live stuff. You know, I would like...
Because it's a... Yeah, but if we're recording it, it's live. When we record it, it's not like...
So this is the intro.
Give me a football, let me hit him in the head. You don't have that like in there so you can upload it?
Yeah, so this is where we'll come in and we'll say, hey, this is the Regular Guys coming to you from La Mirada with your hosts, Gary O, Jude Oliva, and Zeke Prado. Let's go!
That's our intro, we're going to record that?
Yeah, and then you would just start, you know, when that's the starting point for us to, you know, go ahead and start the conversation, get that going.
Definitely a Zeke Prado thing.
Zeke Prado Entertainment. ZPE.
We had a lot of fun putting together that beat, so.
Yeah, you know what? It sounds like it's Indian or like Aztec, you know, with the flute.
Yeah. The flutes. Yeah, it was funny trying to put it together because Dave was like, all right, what do you want? What do you want? It's like, all right, man, here's what we got. I want some horns. I want, and he's just like, I want some horns.
Did you know how that works?
Yeah. I'm like, I want like a drum line from a band from down south. That's what I want, a drum line. And let's get some flutes in there, you know. So as we're building it, and you see like the skeleton of it, the way we started off and the way it ended, it was like completely different song. It wasn't even what we were looking for.
Yeah, but once you find a beat, then you stick with it, then you fill it out.
Right.
Yeah.
You start just like you would on a painting.
Yeah.
Right? You would just lay the background.
And then you layer it and layer it.
Right?
Yeah.
Which would be the drum line.
I don't know if you guys knew that. I was a drummer.
Oh, yeah?
In bands and in band. I was varsity football captain, and I was in the band.
So
I had to change at halftime and go march. No, I'm kidding.
So you weren't.
I actually got an easy A because during football season, our band director, there was two of us that played, varsity football. So, during football season, we would just he'd make us carry all the shit out, the bells and all that shit for the halftime show that they were practicing. But since we weren't involved, we did all the lifting. So we'd take all the shit out, and then all Monday through Thursday, and then Friday night they would perform, and we were playing.
So you were getting beat up and not getting beat up at the same time.
I was being made fun of?
Yeah.
Who? Charles. Remember that kid Charles? Yeah, Charles Hallahan.
Oh, yeah. Charles Hallahan.
He was a drummer. Jones used to let him
He would go in halftime?
And drum at halftime. That's how they were terrible.
The only guys that ever let go at halftime was the homecoming kings. If they were on homecoming court, that was the only time I ever let someone go at halftime. It was at South Hills because, they had, real...
It was like a big...
It was a real deal, yeah.
We didn't have that at St.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You didn't have Corvettes going around.
The Theo's pickup truck.
And the janitor cart.
All right. Well, hey, welcome to the show here, The Regular Guys, with your host, Zeke Prado.
Gary Rona.
Jude Oliva.
That's their stage name.
Coach O.
Coach O was going to come with Freaky Zeke over in your mind, but that's taken. So, hey, we're starting this podcast as a collective of coaches, teachers, businessmen, entrepreneurs, foodies, to talk LA culture, talk sports, food, talk coaching, talk life, talk... manhood. Wait, who knows where we're going with this? But we've been wanting to put this together for a while, right, dude?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Coach O, we're bringing you on because you got a lot of insight to us as when we were youth, and we kind of seen it all come full circle. So it's been pretty cool on that end. The lessons that were taught to us, we brought that back to you. So, and what do you think, Coach? Bringing you on a podcast.
Never done one. Never even seen one. This is my first ever podcast.
You don't listen to podcasts on the way to work?
Nope. Nothing? Nope. Just listen to rock and roll.
Oh, man, there's some good ones out there. There's some good ones.
Well, that's what you had mentioned to me, and I was like, I got to find something that interests me so I could listen.
Yeah. I like it. It's like a fly on the wall to some of those guys that I would like to maybe meet one day, you know, Mike Tyson or Joe Rogan, you know, some of those guys that have podcasts, or just, you know, a coach that is starting it. It puts you in the room with them as you're listening to it and get familiar with them. And so, are you listening to any podcasts?
A couple of Eric Thomas. Listen to Dr. Eric Thomas, ET.
Hip Hop Preacher.
Yes, sir.
Is that
Thank
the guy
God
is
it's
that the
Monday.
motivator?
Yes, sir. Yeah, he does. I think listen to a couple of his things. Anything that I can listen to that'll help me benefit myself as an educator or as a coach, I try to do. I don't get into many of them, but when I have the opportunity, I do like to tune into some of those.
Yeah.
Well, I watch TED Talks. Does that count?
Sure. Yeah. That's
A version.
The old version of the podcast.
Yeah, the TED Talks are cool. You know, I think they started that platform of education, you know, and getting the information out there. And then you got to do your own research. But TED Talks have become popular in like the university circles or educators. So I know that even high school kids are starting to do some TED Talks. So.
Do they call them TED Talks or?
Yeah. I think because they've created the platform for you to make the videos and then upload it to their library.
It's a good opportunity for the kids to empower themselves too, and you know, showcase their level of education and the knowledge they have that they can provide to their own peers, and I think it's been pretty cool to see some of those kids get on there. It's pretty inspiring too, even as an older gentleman, being able to look at some of these young, you know, the youth of America and watch them be able to educate not just their peers, but even the older generation as well.
Yeah, it's intimidating to get up in front of people to talk. So can you imagine having a mic or know you're being filmed?
Yeah.
You know, and in front of an audience, and you got to, you know, either be an expert or at least be well versed in whatever you're speaking about. So, you know, it's like, I don't know, both of you guys, when you had banquets, the first time you got up in front of a banquet and had to speak, and you had like 100 people in the audience.
It's pretty nerve-wracking.
I know, my mouth dried up. I couldn't even say. I kept saying and then I took a public speaking class in college because it floored me. And they had the varsity, the JV, and freshmen. And this was back when 3 teams were separate. So, you know, there's 40 kids plus their parents at each level. I was the head freshman coach. All right, Rona, you're up. Huh?
Yeah, you got to run your section of the of the banquet. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
Even just giving an award sometimes is nerve-wracking, trying to remember things about the kid and highlights they had, and you know, you want to make sure that, you know, the kid's winning an award for a reason. You want to make sure you do them justice. Plus, you don't want the parents upset at you, right? So you want to make sure
he was first team all league. You just said he was good.
Yeah. Well, I remember my first time speaking in front of a group I was in middle school. It was they used to have a competition, and they never had a valedictorian. They never had that, so they would have kids compete and have a speech done. So everyone, they would have your class vote on it, and then they would bring you up like the top 5 or 6. And
on your speech.
And I didn't actually write my speech. Somebody wrote it for me.
Isn't that a theme that goes through your life? Your first childhood of your life?
It's just like somebody else wrote my speech, and I was able to go as a finalist, and she was not.
The one that wrote your speech?
So, yeah, she didn't get picked. So if you're out there, I know you are. I remember, thank you. And I remember just butchering the speech, though, when I got up there. I said so many things backwards.
Were you in front of an audience at that
you were in front of an audience at that point. The whole cafeteria was packed.
All looking at you.
Yeah. And they, you know, the thing is that they don't know the speech, right? They don't know if you said it right or wrong, but you
do because you were practicing.
Yeah, and I was up there, I was stuttering, and man, that was my first time getting in front of a group of people, and having to do that. So I understand that part. You know, getting in front of people and speaking.
That was probably some of the best advice I ever gotten from one of my teachers in speech class as well, is reminding you that, you know, nobody knows the topic better than you, nobody understands your speech better than yourself. So when you mess up, then you're not supposed to show that you messed up. You're supposed to be able to just
power
go with
through
the flow
it,
and kind of bounce back. And I don't remember going to those classes and doing that same thing, man.
We did when we had directive studies. Is what we had with Mr. Campbell in high school, and he taught us that. You know, he put us in front of the camera. I remember he put us in front of the camera and we didn't have to say anything. We had to record a minute, I think it was a minute or 2 minutes. Just stand there, make some gestures, you know, move around, you know, fix your eyebrows. But he wasn't saying, it was just, he was making us feel comfortable in front of the camera. You know, and you're thinking like, man, why are we taking this class?
Easy A.
Easy A, right? Easy A.
Have my GPA so I'm eligible for football.
Look at us now. Here we are in this pandemic, right? Everybody's having to get used to being in front of the camera. Zoom, right? Zoom meetings are crazy. They're in the classroom, the kids, teachers.
All business.
All business.
All my meetings are Zoom right now. Zoom and Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, Microsoft Teams, right? Yeah. You're having to get on, and man, that's amazing. So hey, with the podcast, you know, we're here live. We're not live, but we're here in Jude's garage. So if you hear some sounds, some ambience of the city life, that's what it's about. You know, bouncing balls. Someone
lifting weights, or he cut his toe edging the grass.
Or his team is getting blown out.
Yeah. Or he's playing Madden, getting his ass kicked.
Yeah, we want to introduce LA culture to you, because LA culture isn't just, you know, movie stars and trying to run into Brad Pitt on Hollywood Boulevard. You know, I mean, this is LA culture is something, you know, that it's worldwide, right? Whether you have, you know, the food, you have the culture of clothing, you know,
the trends,
the high socks. You know, the Cortez,
the hats,
long T-shirts. You know, you have all of that, man. You got. I think, you know, when you look at LA in comparison to a lot of areas, how diverse Los Angeles has always been. You know, and like I said, it's created a culture that has been rich, and it's always allowed me to go into other cultures and just fit in. You know, spending years in South Dakota. You know, right off the bat, they would tell you, you know, if you're from LA, they're like, oh man,
eyes perk up, huh?
Tell me about LA, man. What was it like, man? Everybody's getting shot. You know, it's like, wait a minute, man. It's like that's part of it. But
some of us get shot.
So there's so much more to Los Angeles that you just need to, you know, you can't cover Los Angeles, let alone San Diego, San Francisco, you know. In a couple weeks, I mean, you got to spend some time out in California, right? If you really want to experience California, you know, you have to have the homeboy lives in LA. You have to have somebody in the suburbs with a nice pool house, right? So you can see off the ridge and see the sunset
and the freeway.
Yeah. You have to sit in traffic for a couple hours.
Yeah, that's inevitable. No matter where you're at, you're going to sit in traffic out here.
Yeah.
You got to drive to downtown LA, 7th and 8th Street. You know, check that out. Right?
Philippe's.
Go
downtown.
shopping. Go shopping at the flea market. Have a sandwich from Philippe's. He is, that gentleman's upset about his team losing. Who is it? The Rams?
Must be Seattle.
Seattle?
Russell Wilson's having another bad game, and he's probably on his fantasy roster.
Oh, there it is. He's upset, and that's part of LA culture too. We have the Rams, you got the Raiders. With the
what comes next is the gunshots. So we'll be hitting the deck. You hear gunshots, we all hit the deck, and grab the kids.
Got Chargers, right? LA culture. You got the Los Angeles Lakers and the Clippers.
Dodgers.
You got the Kings. You got the Dodgers. You got the Angels of Anaheim, Orange County area. No. You have high school football. It's humongous.
Oh, it's big.
Baseball, you have, you know, high school sports,
softball,
it's huge. It's all part of the culture, right? You got the food, like, you know, Coach, you mentioned Philippe's, right? You're having a French dip sandwich from Philippe's, right? You haven't been in LA unless you've had one of those, right? The sandwich, or what else is there?
Pink's hot dogs,
Pink's, Tommy's,
right?
Some of the staples,
In and Out.
Like, you have to have these places. right? Or Petrillo's Pizza.
Ah.
That's right.
You're from the San Gabriel Valley, right?
That's right.
I think we better intervene.
I should check on the neighbors.
Close them down or something.
Oh, I think it's a little bit more than
It might be
NFL football.
During this distance learning, some kids aren't performing like they should. So there's the results.
Number 7.
We're getting an update live from Messiah. What do we got for score, Messiah? Seattle Seahawks winning? Losing. All right, but hey, we are here on NFL Sunday, again, with our podcast, The Regular Guys, covering LA culture, sports, food, drinks, cerveza, high socks, cholos, whatever, and we want to kind of keep this going, and, once in a while, we will bring on some guests, whether we bring them in through Zoom or they're here live with us in Judah Leva Studios here in La Mirada.
La Mirada, world headquarters of the Regular Guys.
But let's get into who we are. Kind of introduce ourselves here, give you a little bit of background on us here on the Regular Guys. I'm gonna let Coach O kind of open that up, and then go from there.
All right, I met these two guys at San Gabriel back in 1996.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice spring in 90.
yeah.
96.
I started in spring ball in 96.
96.
So,
Or 95. Spring 95.
no, because 96 you already started the year.
96 is our first season, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
1996.
And I became the head coach at San Gabriel High School. 22 people applied for that job.
Yeah.
And I went in. I had a full suit on. I had a briefcase. And I went in, and there was like 10 guys sitting, waiting to go. And I was like the second to last one, right? And they're all in PE clothes, every one of them. Whistles hanging and stuff. And I was like, holy Nikes. So I asked, the secretary, whoever I was, said, I'm here for the interview. I have a seat. And so everyone's just staring at me like, great, only guy that dressed up. Because I figured it was an important job, so I dressed up for it. So in that interview, there was a couple of neat stuff that happened. One of them was athletic director. First of all, there was a panel, and there was like 2 seniors on it. Brady was on it, but he wasn't a senior. He was a quarterback, right? And there was a panel of a couple teachers, the activities director, a vice principal, a principal, the athletic director. So I must have had like 10 people in front of me. So table of 10 people, all the way around the corner, right? Principal sit on this corner, the AD sit on this corner, and me in the middle. And so, I started the interview, and everybody had a question. So I had 10 questions right off the bat. Then I started getting the nuts and bolts. And, Stan, Bob Stan, the AD, he said, okay, so you have 3 good running backs, and you're talking about your offense, and you like to throw the ball.
Wait a minute. We ain't had 3 good. What's Bob Stan thinking? All right, continue on. All right.
He said if you had 3, I think it was hypothetical, if you had 3 good running backs, would you change your offense? Because I was at South Hills, and at South Hills, we threw the ball. We were like, I'm going to say 60-40 pass to run, right? But we still had a 1,000-yard backer every year. So, when I went in, that's what I was talking about is, our offense is 3 receivers, sometimes a tight end, sometimes 4 receivers, single back. And so his question was, okay, so you had 3 good running backs. Would you change your offense to a running offense? And so I kind of sat there, it was, kind of a curveball. Like I wasn't ready for that. And I was like, whoa. So I thought about it, and I said, no, I wouldn't. And so it was funny because when I said no, I think out of the 12 people that were there, 10 of them took down and wrote notes. I was like, oh, man, did I say the wrong thing? Right? So Bob said, well, why not? It's because when you play the good teams, they can stop the run. And when you fall behind, let's say you're down 14-0 going into the fourth quarter, right? And you're still trying to pound the ball 2 yards, 1 yard, 2 yards with your big backs. and you can't get any yards, so you're out of the game. You lose. So if you're not a throwing team and you don't have pass as your DNA, you can't just all of a sudden switch it on and try to throw if you've been handing the ball off running, all the way up into that game. You get a team that can stop the run. So to have the pass DNA, you got to throw every day. Backs got to catch balls out of the backfield. All receivers, DBs, everyone knows how has to learn to catch the ball. So you have to have receiving drills every day, and it has to be your DNA. If you can run the ball, it's a bonus. But you don't want to be in the situation where you get a team that can load 8, 9 in the box and shut you down. Right now, you got to throw, and you haven't worked any passing because it takes way more practice time to be better at the pass than it does to hand the ball off. Right? Second thing, there's only one ball. And this is what I learned from John McKay. So only one ball. It's not that heavy, but only one person can carry it at a time. So then I told this panel, I said, okay. I said, so I got 3 good running backs or 3 good athletes, right? So I spread them out. One at tight end, I put one in the slot and one in the backfield. The one that's the best runner, that has the best vision is the back, right? But he has to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield too, right? So now I put 3 guys on the field and we throw. So now we have 3 different options that people got to cover instead of just handing the ball off with 2 tight ends and trying to run with the 3 backs. Or the double wing offense where, we got a little misdirection, but we're going to give that tailback 40 carries. So I got done with the interview. I thought I blew it. I thought I screwed the pooch. And so I went home, and then later on that night I got a call from the principal. And he told me that I'd had a really good interview, and he wanted to come in and see me the next day. So I said, okay, maybe I made the top 5 or top 10 or whatever. 22 guys. Maybe they were cutting it down, right? So he brought me in, and he told me I was the only coach out of the 22 that said no, I wouldn't change my offense for those 3 backs.
Really?
That got me the job. Because I knew what I was talking about. Meaning, I want 3 targets out there. Now, you're going to stop the run. You're going to bring that safety down. Now I'm going to throw the tight end out, and my other guy with the slant. And so I talked. I explained to them how the offense works versus using the athletes. And that's what got me the job. Was I had to sit there and say, you know what? I think I blew it, but that's what I believed in, and that's what I was going to do anyways. And it got me the job.
Wow, that's when I think about it. Jude, that coverage was dry though, right? Because the class before, they had the 3 running backs.
Yes.
They had Kip Thompson, they had Mark Gomez, they had William Brooker the year before he got hurt. You had Oscar Hernandez at fullback. So they had, the nucleus of backs, and they all graduated. So you came into guys that were younger and new, and I think there was a couple sophomores that were playing varsity, like Jude and Paul. There's a couple of guys, but other than that, most of that collective of kids didn't even play that year, the year before, that '95 year. So
yeah, we had a lot of first time, or they played a freshman, they didn't play a sophomore or junior. Right. Now they were seniors. Yeah.
So that's an interesting question, because that was probably the conflict that they had, because kids left, kids transferred out, and, because they didn't have the offense that catered to
the back
kids. Yeah. So it's an interesting question that was the one.
And think about it. Your guys' influence is the pass.
Yeah.
You guys played receiver, you played quarterback, you played receivers, right? And one of my highlights of my whole career was picking up that newspaper every was it Monday when they put the stats out? And there we had the number 1 quarterback, we had the number 1 and 2 receivers, in receptions. And think about that. Here we had 3 good guys, all in the top 10 of the valley, in stats. And think about before, if you had a back, you'd have 1 guy, the running back.
Right.
So basically, my interview, came full circle.
Yeah, that was it. Because then he's had the opportunity to go coach, back in San Gabriel and coach my nephews or coach his brother.
Did you run or throw?
Mainly throw.
Right. What was it like, back then, '95 throwing? Like, was that happening? I know the first time we actually saw high school really throw the ball was Hart High School in '98. That was when they were 4 or 5 wide and throwing.
Yeah.
That was the first time I'd really seen a team just throw. But was it already happening? Was it new at that time?
Yeah, there was a sprinkling of schools that dedicated to the pass first, right? You know, like I think Miles Davis in the NFL and college was running the run and gun or the spread, you know, and that's I went to a couple coaching clinics and I bought a couple films about that, you know, about how you spread them out. There's a lot of room out there. You know, when you run formations or 2 tight end formations, and with the fullback you compress the defense, and so I learned the concept of spreading people out and giving people room and getting them the ball quickly. And then one of my influences was Bill Walsh in San Francisco. And Bill Walsh, I first saw him at Stanford. And then, you know, what he did at Stanford, knowing he didn't have the best athletes, but he was competing or beating some of the best teams, kind of like what Harbaugh did when he went to Stanford, you know, the last time he was there, was basically is getting rid of the ball, like don't get sacked. And so, you know, the quick 3-step pass, play action pass. I mean, one of my favorite plays is on first down is the throw and it's play action pass, because defensive coordinators and defenses think 1st and 10, they want to put you in 2nd and long, so they either bring somebody, they're trying to fill gaps, and you fullback in the flat, a tight end in the flat, a receiver stock and go. I mean, with the play action look, with defense's eyes in the backfield, you get a nice, easy first down completion, and it's usually pretty easy because defenses are compressed on first down, trying to shut the run down, especially in high school, right? That when you go play action and you get that guy the ball quickly in the flat, he turns up and goes. It's usually a 15-yard gain, and that's one of my favorite things to do is that or boot out of a counter on first down, because everybody likes to compress the box.
Yeah. Well, talking about like coming in and you had that whole philosophy, what was like the culture that you walked into?
At San Gabriel? Holy cow! Let me give you a story that blew me away. So we win our first game, right? Did we win our second game? Or was Temple City our second game?
Temple City was the second game.
No, we won our third game, so we're 2-1.
Yeah.
Right, and then we played La Puente and got our arm blown up, and then it was over. Right. So we go 6 in a row losses, and then the last game was against Keppel, and we win that game. Right. So after the Keppel game, you know, we're feeling good. We were home.
Yeah, we beat them at home.
It was at home.
Yeah, because the second year we beat them away. But anyways, it was after the Keppel game. I don't know if it was in the locker room or something, and I heard guys talking about the ice cream bowl. I said, "What the fuck's the ice cream bowl?" And these kids were saying, "No, you know, because I guess they drafted, you know, you would draft guys and stuff like that, right?" So the kids that would go to other sports would leave. So the basketball players would go to basketball, the wrestlers would go to wrestling, right? Soccer would go to soccer, right? And then the baseball guys would go to baseball, and then whatever's left, they had an ice cream bowl. So the season went in like the second week of November, right? And they would put a schedule together, okay? And then they would have the ice cream bowl before I think Christmas break. So even all the way through Thanksgiving, they would play. Then Thanksgiving break, then they'd come back, and then they'd continue to play all the way until Christmas break. And so, you know, I had never heard about it. You guys played other sports, so you guys probably never had to deal with this, right?
Ice cream bowl.
Yeah. So here's what it was, right? It was the coaches that were there, or one of the PE teachers, I don't know who it was, would put everybody up, and they'd put them in brackets, and then they'd make a schedule, and then they would play like 7-on-7 flag. And they'd have a tournament, and then they'd play for the tournament, like in December, right? Yeah, and so that was 6 periods, but they stayed in the football class, and that's what they would do, right? So I heard that, and I said, "What? What are you talking about?" So we're in the weight room. Well, on Monday, season's over. We're getting ready for next season. We're in the weight room 3 days a week, and we're on the field 2 days a week. We're working our stuff. And they looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Ice cream bowl, that's what losers do." I said, "I haven't been home after the second week of November in 10 years. I've been in the semifinals. I was trying to play for a championship. So we played, every year we played in Thanksgiving week. And here you guys are talking about an ice cream bowl? What are you talking about?"
Culture, right? Culture.
They were done. They already figured out after the second week of the season, the last game, the second week of November, they were ready to have their fun for the off season. And I'm always in the playoffs. South Hills, we were playing for titles. We weren't playing for ice cream.
Right. I would remember that. I always use that term. You told us once about playing in the playoffs and eating turkey sandwiches because we were practicing during Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So that always stuck with me. It's like that's what I always wanted was turkey sandwiches. I never wanted actual turkey because I knew at that point that we was playing. We were still.
Yeah, that was the second round. Yeah, that means you got by the first round.
Right.
Yeah, that's when it's fun. When when the kids, you got to go out. You want to have an early practice on Thanksgiving Day because you want to get the kids back to their family, right? And sometimes the moms would bring turkey sandwiches for everybody. That the linemen, they'd take 4 of them, but and then they'd go eat dinner that night too. But no, it's a different level. And I mean, I don't know, when we went to the playoffs, remember I stopped practice and I made everyone come over and said, there's only a handful of teams that are practicing right now. Like you got to understand, to get there. It's not everybody, to get there, you got to get there. And then once you're there, you're elite. Other people aren't practicing. They're turning their shit in already. They're all in their other sports,
Yeah.
It was a big, I guess, not an awakening. I knew that the culture wasn't about, playing for football and winning championships. I knew the baseball team did. I knew the volleyball teams did. The badminton teams did, but football was, like an afterthought. And so to me, I had to teach everybody what it was to become a winner and how you win and how you work all year to win. I mean, Temple City kicked our ass. Was it 48-6? 48-7, right? That first year, right?
Yeah.
We worked on stopping that veer offense from the week we started going back out in the field. You guys were in other sports, right? I was already working how to stop the veer in November for next year, September.
Yeah.
But I mean, how many, people didn't understand, what it takes to win is, you got to do stuff. Like when I was at South Hills, Bogan and I, we would run offenses against our defense that we knew we were going to face during the season in the summer. So we'd run, they like to run the NCAA route, so we'd run an NCAA route. We'd do like 10 reps every practice. So we knew Covina ran it. We knew Northview ran it. We knew teams we were going to play ran it, and that's where I learned that was from Bogan at South Hills, that, you do stuff in the summer that you're going to see. And it's funny, like you do it in the summer, then how you go to your week-to-week game plan, right? And, you don't do, all of a sudden you come to that week that you're playing the NCAA route that you worked all summer to stop, right? And I would notice the kids right away, they would react to it right away. So sometimes how you put your game plan in, so we're going to do this. And it's something you really haven't worked on and it's kind of rusty. Sometimes you got to shit can it before you can even get it out for game day. It's like, no, that's gone. That didn't work. The kids didn't get it, right? Well, when I was at South Hills, I learned that you game plan it in the summer, and then all of a sudden you're in week 7, and then you're running that game plan from the summer, and the kids would pick it up like 2 or 3 reps, and then and then boom, they were on it. I was like, holy cow! It was like a mind blowing for me to see how that, before it was like, I just did week to week, and I'd just scream at the kids more if they didn't get it, It was, and that's what I started when I got to, San Gabriel was my first head coaching job, and so I had stuff, my notes and my playbooks written down that I was going to stop the veer, I was going to stop the double wing, I was going to stop the counter, I was going to stop the flood route, stuff that kicked our ass that year. We worked it all summer, and I don't know if you guys realized it, but that's what we were doing. Is that we were stopping the veer, we were stopping the flood, we were stopping the boot rollout, we were stopping the stuff that kicked our ass.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that stuff when it was happening. Until now, now I realize what was actually happening with the X and O's, because I was, just a kid that played. I just played football. I didn't ever knew scheme and 4-3. I remember growing up and they'd put me on corner. I was like, oh, cool, what am I doing out here? Like I'm not, playing D-line and trying to rush the quarterback. Like, what do I do? I have no idea. Yeah, so like football in that sense for me, the X and O portion didn't come in till probably my first year of college. So,
at
COC,
yeah. That's when you started hearing more and more scheme talk, right?
Understand? Yeah, like there was actually some education, even like science behind it. Like why a line at 12 yards, why a line at 5 yards. You know what I mean? Like there's all of that goes into it. So, I'm gonna flip and get Jude here to kind of give an intro on his who he is and. Explore that bit, man.
Yeah, Jude Oliva, aka I guess the little Coach O. took the name after Coach Arona when I decided to take up coaching as a career. I've been really, really fortunate, really blessed in my career to be coached by some very, very good coaches, very good mentors. Coach Arona being one of them that got that. And it just goes back to what I think what I originally thought of Coach Arona when I first met him was, you know,
what a dick.
A winner. Oh, that's part of it too. No, I'm just kidding.
A lot of up downs.
more of a, you know, he was a winner. He was a forward thinker. Just like that question you said. I mean, that was probably one of the best answers I think someone could have gave, because it's like one of those, at that time people weren't thinking that way. And as you look now, everybody talks about the evolution of football and all these cool RPOs and things. There were people doing that before it was even cool.
Yeah.
I know we were doing that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's cool, so everybody's doing it. But just that forward thinking, that working to win, like you don't just show up and be successful. You have to grind every day. You have to bring your work ethic every day. You have to make sure that you're on point every single day at every single opportunity, to be the best that you can be. And then obviously those things will tie into success and winning. I think those are the things that I took the most from Coach Arona. And then I moved on and was really blessed to be coached by, I think is probably one of the best offensive minds that I've been around, which Chuck Lyon, and surrounded by his staff. I mean, come on, man, we're talking about some of the guys that are on the staff.
They're on TV right
They're
now.
on TV. They're making millions of dollars, and they're head coaches at different places. They coach in the NFL. Jay's the offensive line coach, one of their top recruiters for University of Virginia. Dose is considered one of the best strength coaches in America. I mean, we were surrounded by greatness, not even knowing it as kids, and just taking those influences and taking them into my coaching career. When I did decide to coach, I went back, like Zeke said, went back and I decided to coach at my alma mater at San Gabriel High School. That was my first football job. I was went in to be an assistant and turned into an OC, and and things just rolled with it. And a couple of years later, I was fortunate to take over that program and be the head coach of that program, which I'm still super proud of. I think we were one of those teams that were always looked at as a team that didn't have very much, but we always overachieved and got the most out of those kids. And I think, again, all those influences I had in coaching went through there. Then after I think 10 seasons, I ended up at Maranatha High School, private Christian school in Pasadena. Did that for a season. Left to go finish my credential. Ended up at Buena Park High School, and that was a whole different ball game. I never been out to Orange County, and man, Orange County's it's a business even in high school. You get to see, some of those Tiger dads and
shopping their kids around.
What
do you got? What do you got?
It's a whole different.
What do you have? What can you do? Let me see your office. They want to know your X's and O's.
That was the first
How
time.
many passes you gonna throw a game?
The first time I dealt with that stuff, and I never heard of. I'm gonna be honest with San Gabriel Valley. Nobody really talks about how many stars you have and how many offers you have, and you get to Orange County, and the first
all
thing,
stars.
Everybody's talking about, I'm a 4-star, I'm a 3-star, I'm a 5-star. I have kids, I was really fortunate to coach a kid that was a 4-star. Some of them had him at a 5-star. Athlete who was super humble. But that was probably one of my first guys to coach like that. And seeing those things and just, the guy was, I think he had over 40 Division I scholarship offers. So dealing with that stuff was a whole different ball game. And that's kind of what I've been through coaching. Just recently I took some time off to be with my family, and this year decided to step back into coaching. Obviously, I don't know how that's working out because we're in the pandemic, but coaching at Orange High School as the offensive coordinator. And, one of the cool things, I guess, blessing in disguise, being able to bring Zeke on the staff. It's been years since we've been able to reconnect and do those things, but that's kind of how my coaching little stops, and how my career so far. Played at College of the Canyons, played at San Gabriel High School, and then Dakota State University in Madison, South Dakota. And so when he talks about South Dakota, I understand it. That's why I was only there for 2 years.
Yeah, this is different culture out there, man. Culture is what a culture is.
Cold.
Sure.
Cold.
Yeah. So two coaches, and man, making full circle, man. Coach O, Coach Arona coaching out in 95, 96, or 96, 97, and then 10 years at San Gabriel. And, kind of just building on that culture, right? You said that winning mentality, And I don't think, I don't know, man. Growing up, didn't see a lot of it, like a different level of drive and winning, when I think about it, and that's what I think for me was I was just a player. I just played, and I competed, but I didn't know, there was a formula to win, there's that, and that's one of the things that, covering and being able to get out there to other coaches, that there's a formula, when it comes to winning and coaching, and it just doesn't happen overnight. It just developed, or it's passed on, right? And it's shared, and it's adopted, and it's and when you name some of the coaches, you're connected, Chuck Lyons. I mean, so that's all, full circle, and all that the winning formula to get down to us, and then trickle down to everybody else that we've been around, and maybe they can see that that's why we're driven so much in football, why we love it so much, and have so much fun with it, because we understand it, right? We understand football. Yeah, they always ask that question. Why football? Why? We don't get paid a ton. You get nothing. Actually, you lose money coaching in California. This isn't Texas. You're not getting paid $100K to coach.
You're not sponsored by a car dealer.
No, nothing like that. You're making pennies.
It's a tractor company.
Right? Those. You get a quarter an hour or whatever it was. Just to coach. So you do it for the love. You do it for the passion, man.
For the kids.
For the kids. And now the stipends are bigger now than they were probably. When you were at San Gabriel, the head coach probably made $2,500, and
I had to split $1,500 stipends. You're a freshman coach, so you only get half.
Like we have to have a car wash.
Yeah, exactly.
You get
all you kids bring $5 tomorrow. All right, there you go, coach.
$500. You had a staff. You had a lot of coaches out there. I
tried to get as many people that I could, to show up and to be there. And a lot of the guys that I brought were from the outside, that had been successful, so that I knew that when you're successful, that's that confidence that just comes out, And like what you were talking about with Coach Lyon, I spent 4 years with him at Pasadena City College, and I learned a lot. There was some coaches at PCC that. There were, USC coaches, Washington State coaches, Arizona State coaches. Some of the guys were in the NFL, and a lot of their friends were NFL guys. So we had NFL guys would come to practice, and they would sit in our coaches' meetings, and we'd talk with them. And, I learned so much at Pasadena City College, and Chuck Lyon is the one I learned, my offense through, where it really expanded it. He was our defensive coordinator when I got there, and I was the receiver coach, and he was the DB coach. So we'd go against each other every day in practice, 1-on-1, 7-on-7, everything, blocking, stock blocking, everything. And his guys were killing me at first. And I would ask him questions after practice. I'd sit in his office and say, what is he looking at? Why is that guy, why don't we try to run a slant? He's already there. He's already on our inside hit. He's got his chest. Came right up, head turned, boom, jump inside. And so, I learned all the intricacies and the nuances of teaching the positions to get guys open from him. And so I started teaching stuff where we would run a slant and we would run widen like we were trying to win and out, and we'd open our hips and shoulders that way, because what Chuck told me after practice 2 days ago, I'd work on it with my kids. Next thing you know, their DBs are jumping the out. We're running a slant in practice and going 80 yards for a touchdown. He's screaming at his kids, and the kids are pointing at my guys saying, he was breaking it out. And Chuck just looked at me, and I just smiled. I said, yeah, we were. But I taught my kids that, all right, you're looking at that, we're doing this, and we're running a slant, And it was stuff like that where when I got to you guys, I had some really good influences and some really good coaches that, they knew the little stuff, the little things that would make you, how to reach block, how to double team and work up to the second level. What passes are open against what zone? Where do you settle? You wait for that guy. He makes the mistake. He goes this way, you settle here. He drops back, you settle here. There was stuff like that at Pasadena City College where I learned, the nuances of coaching from the coaches that were, have done it for years. I mean, they were masters, and they were all winners.
Right.
And so when I got to San Gabriel, I had, some network of guys. I had, a guy from South Hills. I had some guys from Rosemead. I coached at Rosemead High School. So I had some influences, and I had some kid from John Glenn, Coach Tio, who was a successful running back, and so I brought these guys with me when I went there to try to, give you guys some quality people and coaches that could give you guys what you guys needed, because we needed a lot of coaching.
We needed help. We need some milk.
You can definitely see the shift in now. Granted, being there. And I was there a little bit earlier because my sister was a varsity cheerleader, and we used to go watch her. So I had to go sit through some of that painful memory of football. I think they had 36 straight games of losing or something like that. So I remember watching that stuff and being like, "There's no way I'm coming to school here." This is when we were playing Rebels and.
Rebels were winners.
We were winners, and we were being bred to be Rosemead Panther kids, and if you're good enough, Bishop Amont kids or whatever it was. And
I remember
my mom telling me, "Yeah, I'm excited that all these coaches want you to go play at different places, but we don't go to 2 different schools here. We only have 1 car, and you go where we go." And I knew real quick that I was going to be.
Matador,
and I didn't know how to take that at first. But then when right before our freshman season, I think we got a hold of some of the guys that were really good in the area and
recruited them.
Yeah, got them like William Brooker and some of those guys that could have went anywhere else, and they were so talented and decided to come to San Gabriel, and then brought Zeke and his junior high. We all kind of linked up there and kind of started. We started that freshman class pretty successful. I mean, for a San Gabriel team, it was really successful. And then playing that sophomore year with all the varsity guys and, only winning, I think, 2 games or 3 games and seeing how rough that was. And then just seeing, like, when you got hired and the people you brought on, and you could see, like, that culture shift of, like these men that were invested in us. They actually, this is probably the first time I ever heard somebody say, like, we were going to win. Like, actually tell us that we were going to win on Friday night, and I remember the preparation is what was going to separate us. And I've never heard at that school a coach so confident about winning. So I mean, I guess I've always been one of those loyal people that just believe in the people that invest in myself. So I was like, well, if he says we're winning, I guess we are. Hey, let's go. I had no other way to think.
We're going to show up and last we'll win.
Coach, I think about that stuff. You come into a group of kids, that you're trying to connect with. And, like, you were there, too. You were a football player in high school. Culture. Like, is that different, trying to connect to a group of kids from, San Gabriel? Or did you feel like you can relate to us, connect to us? Because that always interests me, that culture part of, like, coming into, maybe a culture of football, wasn't as important to a lot of people. Because I didn't have, football wasn't important to me. I didn't even know that I really wanted to play college football until someone said, hey, you can play college football. And it was just the same thing. Hey, you can win. You're like, oh.
What?
And so, like, your upbringing, there was that, part of it, for yourself to give that back to us. Did you see us and see yourself? What was that? Was that like? Was that happening?
Yeah, my parents took us to Mexico when I was 10 and 12 years old, and my grandma lived there, and I had an uncle that lived there. I was in Sinaloa. It's a small town called Concordia, about 2 hours from Mazatlan. So we'd fly into Mazatlan, and we'd get in the back of a stake bed truck and bounce all the way for 2 hours to this little town called Concordia. And my mom would, make us do chores every day or every Saturday. all our kids, all our friends would be out of the neighborhood. Come on, come out and play. We bouncing their balls, throwing the football around, and we had to do our chores before we go play. If we didn't go out and do our chores, right, and we went out and played, and my parents were working, and when they got home, and if we weren't done, we got the whip, right? We got the cinto, right? So my mom would always tell us, like, you guys don't know how good you have it, right? You know how we tell our kids nowadays, we don't know how good you have it, right? So she would make us, part of our chores was this. We had to clean the windows every week, and we had to vacuum the screens. It's like, what the heck? Our other kids would just do vacuum, dust, toilets, and dishes, and that was it, right? We had to do trash, we had to do the windows, we had to do the vacuuming, we had to pick up and dust the carpets outside every day, right? And one would have to hold, and I was a baseball player, so I could swing the bat and dust it, right? And it was just like, we did like from A to Z to clean. Our house was spotlit every Saturday by 2 p.m., right? Because we wanted to get out and play with everybody, right? And so I didn't understand, how my mom was so bent on how good we had to clean, right? And then she took us to where she grew up, my grandma's house, the house that my mom grew up in, right? It's in Concordia, Sinaloa, Mexico, right? Yeah. It was 4 brick walls with cutouts for windows, no windows. Man. Okay? First time I met my grandma, she's about 5 foot, 4'11", 5 feet, about 85 pounds, right? She had a dress on. She had her hair in a ponytail. She had glasses hanging off her nose. She had a apron, and she had a towel in one hand and a broom that had the handle cut in the other hand. And I walked in the house, and it was a dirt floor. Yeah. I went, okay, and this was like I was 10 the first time I went there, so I was born in 61, so it was 1971. So as we walked in the house, we're bringing our suitcases, we're walking in. My grandma's behind us, knocking the dust off of us down and sweeping the layer of dust that we just brought up out the window. Huh. Okay, we stayed a month in that house in Mexico in the middle of summer. Oh, boy. Middle of July.
No AC. No central air.
Okay, get this. Bugs at night.
Oh man.
Would come in the windows, mosquitoes, and they had these bugs called habituchis, right? And they would pee on you, and they would be like an acid. And they'd give you like ronchas, okay? So I don't know what they're called now, but they call them habituchis, right? So you'd hear them coming in, and you would you would sleep the whole night underneath like a mummy, like nothing sticking out because you didn't want to get stung or peed on, right? And we were on cots, so like the cots would make noise. You could hear dogs running through the streets at night, and we had a wood door, dirt floor, and nothing in the windows. I was like, oh my God, right? That first Saturday we got back and we had to clean. My sister, brother, and I, we were like the 7 dwarfs. We were whistling, all happy with windows, doing the screens, like we were like, hi-ho, oh, we got windows, oh, we got carpet, oh, we got tile floor, oh, hey, we got a toilet that flushes. They had an outhouse in the back of the house that we had to go to the bathroom. The shower was a water hose. It was only cold water.
Oh boy!
So it was an eye-opening experience for me. So one of the things that happened in this trip was, I was a big Dodger fan growing up. So you know how you go to helmet weekend back then in the day, and you get everybody got a helmet. So I had the Dodger helmet. I actually had 3 of them because my dad would take me Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so I'd get 3 helmets, right? Mm-hmm. And then I would put like my favorite Dodgers number in the back. I'd buy one of those stickers and put number 7 for Yeager, number 6 for Garvey, or 22 for Buckner, right? And I brought 2 of these helmets with me. I brought like 2 gloves. I brought like a bag of baseballs in my suitcase, right? And I brought like 4 Dodger hats. Actually it was 2 Dodger hats and like 2 of my Little League hats, like the teams I was on. One was the Giants, and don't tell me why. But anyways, so when we were leaving, my dad came to get us, right? And so when we were leaving, all the kids, every day, they couldn't wait for us to go outside and play because I had all the gear. I had a bat, I had gloves, I had balls, I had hats, I had, whatever. We used cardboard for bases, right? And we would play out in the street, and they all loved it, right? And so, my dad said, all right, so he made me give my gear to all the kids in the neighborhood. So, all right, which one of you likes the Dodgers? Oh, me. So he gave him a Dodger hat. He gave him a Dodger helmet. He gave him the bat. Who's the best hitter? And I would say, that guy is. He gave him the bat. Who's the best fielder? That guy's got a good arm, And so my dad left all my gear there, and he said, don't worry. I'll get you new stuff when we get back. And I was like, oh my gosh, so that was all my stuff, right? I left it. So 2 years goes by, and then at 12 years old, we go back out there and we stay another month out in Grandma's. But now we know what to expect. That first one was a culture shock trip, right? Yeah. But that second trip, when we got back out there, I left about a dozen balls, hardball baseballs, right? We got back there, all the baseballs, the covers had come off, and they were taping them, and it was the strings would be coming off, and they'd be lopsided. I said, what happened to the baseballs, right? Well, they didn't play on grass. You played on, the streets weren't, pavement. It was like hard compressed dirt, but there was rocks and stuff in them, right? And that's where we would play. And they just kept playing there for 2 years. When I got back, all those balls, they weren't together, but they were all taped together. My hat had like stains on it, or where you put your hands and it starts getting, the top comes off and just see the cardboard inside the lid. That's how my hats looked. And plus, these guys wore them out to work or wore them out in the fields, right? And I was like, these guys, they all had their stuff. The only thing that looked decent was the baseball, the blue baseball plastic helmet, but it was cracked because someone had got mad at them and threw it on the ground. And they were telling me the story, right? And so I go back at 12 years old, and now all these kids had the same gear. Nobody got anything new, because they were all poor. And they had all this gear, and I was like, oh my God. So I brought more gear. My dad actually had me load up more. And so when I left that second time, I left them with more stuff. And that's like where it started with me. My parents, supported, my family in Mexico. Yeah. But I'd always have to go to the pharmacy, the Farmateca, and get money orders. My mom would make me good money. I'd be carrying $500 sometimes to the pharmacy. My mom would put it in, put the $500 in an envelope and put it in my pocket. So, and she wrote $500 on the outside of it. And she didn't tell me what it was. I could have got mugged walking to the Farmateca. I didn't know. Yeah. And I have a quarter for each $100 money order. So I have 5 quarters, and okay, there's this one, here's this one, here's this one. Then that's what we would send to Mexico to my mom and dad would take care of my mom's family. Wow. And so they always did charity work and stuff like that. So when I started coaching, like I could always tell the kids that didn't have money, because they were the ones that, all right, you guys get your cleats off because we're going to start, running around and doing routes and stuff like that. And then, you'd see 2 or 3 kids that would be slipping during routes, and they had their Vans on or their, whatever, imitation pennies, right? But they had those on, so then I'd pull that kid aside and say, hey, do you need cleats? And he'd say, yeah, my parents can't afford them. So I would buy them cleats. Yeah. And so, like, a lot of the kids liked playing for me because I always did things for them above and beyond, just playing football or just being a coach. And it was instilled in me, on my visits and seeing where my parents came from and how poor they were and how they were supporting their family, that, it was just a given to give back. Right. So it was when I got to San Gabriel, it was like exactly the situation I wanted to be in,
Yeah, you bought me my first pair of cleats, yeah. I didn't have cleats. I used those old Jordans or the Dion's from Carlos Sanchez game. Yeah, we just passed them down because I finally fit into them.
It was your turn.
They were 12s and you were an 8s.
See, and that, that's where you talk about, you give back. The stipend ain't enough, but you got to do it, right? It's got to be done. It's got to be done. And no matter where you're at, you got some kids that have need, and that's important. And I realized that, when that was happening for me, and even with baseball, and they bought me a glove, and I was one of those kids that, the coach would just drive by the house, and pick me up, and I'd be wearing jeans and a t-shirt and go to practice and play in my jeans, and then, like I said, slide around in the vans, and it was. I remember we played for the Monterey Park Angels. It was a traveling ball team, and I was just, a kid that I didn't have all the gear now, or like they have now.
You can't walk on the field without a $350 to $400 bat.
Yeah. Or have a batting cage in your backyard.
Yeah, and a pitching machine.
One of my friends brought it up the other day. Because we would talk about what we had, and then she's like, yeah. Like you guys didn't have a batting cage in your backyard. And I was like, oh, you got a batting cage in the backyard now.
Oh.
Yeah. But you do those things to help, get the edge, right? And that's why sports is different now than it was 20 years ago, than it was 40 years ago. It's just, the evolution of sport, man. And then June, you got to stay, coaching, right? And for 10 years at San Gabriel with the same type of kid.
Same type of kid. Yeah, we started. I know. I mean, obviously, going through just being an assistant coach, seeing the need of what our kids need. Obviously, being from the same neighborhood, you know exactly what they need. Growing up the same way, I think I had a. I always say I kind of had an unfair advantage because I had the lay of the land before it was. I got a lot of kids that normally wouldn't go to San Gabriel, come back to San Gabriel to play for myself, and I think a lot of that had to do with the same thing. Is just understanding who they were, what they were about, where they came from, going above and beyond. And this is before, I know when I first started, I was still a student. I was still a college student, so I was still just like them. I was living with my mom and, going out and coaching and doing those things. But any little thing that we could do, like we would do for them. I know when I became the head coach later on, we started that booster club. And everybody always asked me how come my booster club was all women. And I said that was kind of strategically done that way because, who loves kids more than their parents, than
moms,
their
yeah.
I mean, dad loves you too, but you're not going to get that same drive and affection.
Go to the booster club meeting or go drinking with my friends. You're going to lose a lot of dads.
So I realized really quick that, the women were the ones that were going to go above and beyond for the kids. So I strategically kind of brought in the women and had them run my booster club. And, I mean, just some of the things we were able to do for those kids. And, I mean, they always got fed, whether it was like Wednesday practice. We'd have Wednesday night practices.
Which we feed them after?
Yeah, we'd have family day, which we call a family day, where we would, their family were able to come watch them practice. We would do everything situational live under the lights, feed them dinner at the end and feed their parents as well. Something that we brought over to Buena Park as well.
And you always had those kids that no one would show up, so you'd have to be there for them.
Yes, definitely.
You would. That's the ones you'd look for in the crowd. Is like, okay, so and so and so and so. No one's here for him. All right, so I'll make sure that I put them with the family, or we adopt them in and bring them in.
Yes,
that's so important because when you have nobody there for you, man, it sucks.
We would. I know I would go and take random trips to Nike outlets, Ross or whatever, and just buy up everything I could find football wise and just have it in our football office because I always knew a kid needed gloves, cleats, whatever it is.
Mouthpieces.
I know the kids at Orange say my trunk's the Big Five. I'm handing cleats out of the back of my trunk.
What size?
Stuff like that. But it's ironic, but it's the same problems, just different years. And you start seeing that like those kids need the investment as well. That because they are going through a cycle, and hopefully, I know like Coach Arona was for you, for me, that cycle breaker. Mm-hmm. I figured I'd be the same person for them, and hopefully I'd get somebody to break that cycle in their family so that they can go off and be successful and do that for somebody else. And like we always talk about paying it forward and doing those things, and that was like the biggest out of all the things that we accomplished, and with winning and stuff like that. Those were always my favorite. Or when I get those invitations, or I see like the celebrations that they send where they graduate from college, or they're getting married. You see them having kids now and them investing in their kids. I think those are the proudest moments I've had since. And I'm just seeing them with the San Gabriel kids. So now here, I think in a couple of years, we'll start seeing that with the Buena Park kids and going on and continuing forward.
Yeah. No, that's been good, man. That paying it forward and understanding that piece. Keeping that going. Like I said, breaking the cycle. And we'll take that like lead into my intro here of football and coaching and I grew up in a household, single mom raising 4 kids, and what I knew about my dad was very little because he passed away when I was 2 years old, and I always ask my brother questions, and he kind of fills me in that like my dad, from Mexico, grew up in Nayarit or Tepic area, and then they lived in TJ, and then they came into East LA, and then
East Los.
East Los, right there on Whittier and Saybrook. And it was my grandma, and then my dad, his brother, sister, and he loved sports. From what my brother kept telling me, like he loved football, he loved track, baseball, and when he was at Garfield, he ran track and field. I don't think he played football in high school, though. I think he just ran track. And then when he turned 18, he went to the military, went to the reserves, was stationed at Fort Hood, and that's where he met my mom. And she was
Texas.
in Texas. So my mom was from Austin, and my family had been in Austin forever. My cousins will tell you they're Tejanos. They're not
Mexican or
yeah.
Texas. And Texas,
right, they speak Spanish, but they've never been to Mexico
yeah.
because we had been in that area the entire time, right? So when Texas was Mexico and that whole exchange and how that works, that taking their nationality and giving them a naturalization birth certificate, and on there it says race, it says white, as opposed to Mexican or
because they were Texans.
They were Texans, man, Tejanos.
Yeah.
And so that's how my mom and dad met, and then they moved to California. And then, my older brother, when he was younger, man, this guy was in everything. My sister was. It was track, and then from track to baseball, football, wrestling. My older brother. So, like, to me, he was always like a super athlete, and I couldn't understand why, but he had that influence on my dad, in life. And so I knew all those things about my dad, like had an idea, but I didn't understand why I love football so much, or I love baseball so much, just going, because that was my outlet, that was for me to, when I went outside, it was just me and the ball, me and this bat, for hours, we would just play, and, growing up right there in a couple years in Monterey Park, going to Inez, and then moving to Rosemead, we used to just play in the driveway, or we would play in the abandoned crack house across the street. I remember they had a house. It was abandoned and boarded up for years, and we used to play out there. And it was just like Sandlot, man. We had the fence that was the home run fence. You remember hitting balls into the neighbor's yard and just having to hit a woman one time. They took our ball away, things like that. But as kids, we grew up, just on the street playing football, playing till the lights turned off, or till mom, called you in. And so growing up, I always had a passion for football, just didn't know where it came from. Until my brother started to kind of fill me in and tell me about that. And so as I'm playing, going into high school, playing sports, playing multiple sports, and then
what did you play? You played football?
I played football, baseball, and then my senior year was just soccer. I should have been doing other things, but
track also.
Track. I did recreation track growing up, right? That was a little different than the AAU stuff they had. It was just kind of city. It was city league track and field. You'd have meets, on weekends and play other elementary schools or middle schools. And but I was never in the competitive travel teams like that. So mom was always working, and I just played for the recreation. Right? And that's where we first met Jude, because Jude played at the Dante Williams.
How old were you guys when you guys met?
Probably 9, 10 years old.
Wow.
Right. This is how we met. And I don't know if it was Jude, but I know somebody on his team tackled me into the fence during flag football.
And we were no tackling, right?
There was no tackling flag football. We were 5th grade. Yeah, I remember coming around the corner and got tackled. My ear was bleeding. I got knocked out for a second. It might have been his cousin, because we were actually on the same Pop Warner team at the time. So we had knew each other. His cousin played Vargas. It was Vargas. And so that's when we first met as kids. We were on the team together at 10 years old. But we had seen each other in recreation, because
Like you play on one team, is playing another team, so
Yeah.
you got plenty.
flag football, and then like during the summer,
And our schools
softball.
were really close too, so
They were around the corner.
That was back when the school was every block, huh?
Yeah.
There was enough kids to fill them too.
Yeah, that was back in Rosemead when they still had the dirt streets. They weren't paved yet.
Damn.
Yeah, that was a Rosemead, and there's so much history in Rosemead. And there's a book called Always Running, which touches on some of like the car club life, gang life at the beginning, early stages of the gang called Animal Tribe, which is a car club that turned into the local gang there. Yeah, and so that was a huge Latino population. Now it's kind of shifted. It's 50-50 Asian and Mexican community, and you kind of seen that shift, as you're growing up. And but like, yeah, Rosemead, that's what we had, recreation. Now they do things differently. Now it's like every school used to have a recreation program. Now it's like
One program for
one
every
program.
school.
Yeah, you got to go, and that's who we ended up meeting a lot of our friends and a lot of kids, and was through that recreation program, which is now the mayor of Rosemead was a rec leader.
Really?
is that still sad?
Yeah, right. So
Wow.
yeah, she was. I remember she was our leader, and then she went to like Harvey Park, and so a lot of the community really knows her, and so that's like part of the rec deal growing up is how we met, as kids, and from there, went to St. Gabriel High School. Like you said, played different sports. That's how I ended up meeting you, and like that just changed everything. Because at the end of it, I had no clue what I was going to do. There was no next step for me. I have an older brother who's locked up, younger brother, passed away in a car accident. But like, I have my sister who has 4 kids, and done great, but I had no clue of what I was going to do. Like, well, go to the military? Like, or do that. My dad was in the military. Maybe I can go, but college was never a thought. I didn't have the grades for it. I tell the kids all the time, man, I said, you got no excuse. You got someone who's been there, done that. I had a 1.7 GPA, 16 ACT, and like, and here I am down the line, and I've gone to school and college, have a degree, and all that stuff. So you have no excuse. Every group of kids that I work with, I tell them, you have no excuse, because you got in front of you got an example. You got someone who's been there, done that. And which a lot of kids, they buy in and they appreciate it, and so with that piece, of loving football and playing college, playing for you, coach, and absorbing all that I learned there, and taking that to college and College of the Canyons, playing for Chuck Lyons, and then taking a year off, and then playing at Glendale with Coach John Sacudo. And then transferring and playing for Rod Olson. And then he left and played for Tony Harper. And then Tony Harper, after that, my senior year, I came back to coach at San Gabriel. 2003, 2004. And 2003, went to the semifinals. Went to the final. My fault.
Yeah.
Went to the finals. Oh, yeah, here we go. Let me rewind. We went to the finals to play South Hills. Right, which we knew Coach Bogan because so here's another full circle, and we had a good group of scrappy kids, from Rosemead.
He had 4 D1 athletes on his team.
At the end of it, he had 7.
Yeah, there were some juniors. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the seniors that year, the twins, and
So he had some dudes on that team, and then the next year. It was a new head coach that, was very new. In 2004, which we went 1-9. You get a team that goes to the semifinals, and then next year you don't keep it rolling because, you try to change the culture that was there, right? You try to, not even add to the culture. You just try to change it completely. So there was no success there, and I think he only lasted 1 year. Maybe.
Wow.
And then that's when I was also involved in that year, was also involved with the Junior All-American program with Jess Gonzalez. He asked me to take over one of his teams, and
who are they?
Rosemead Rebels.
Those Rebels.
Yeah, Rosemead Rebels. Jess Gonzalez had been, he put together that youth program.
That's the name of the park, isn't it?
Name of the park, Jess Gonzalez. He used to be a police officer, and so like they. With that Rosemead Rebel program, you think about how many kids had gone through the program or knew about Rosemead Rebel program in the area. And so he asked me to coach his team, and I agreed to it, but I didn't know what I was getting into because I had like the Bad News Bears. I had the kids that were too heavy to be on the team, and then the kids that were too young to be on the older team. So I just had
all the worst kids.
Group of the Bad News Bears. But I coached them up, man. So Jude also came out, and he helped me after he was done with the high school because he was running the offense there. Then he would come help.
Really? Double duty?
He's double duty. We were doing double duties. Coaching at the high school, and then we were coaching at the youth program. And like I said, we just had some kids that were in-betweeners, man.
They were tweeners.
They were first-year kids, and
then the other teams didn't want them, so they cut them. And they said, we got this team that they can go to.
And they actually plucked one kid from us.
Oh, he's pretty good.
That was supposed to be on the team.
The best one.
The best one. They took him. But we had kids that stepped up, and they weren't expecting us to do anything. They just expected us to have a team.
To show up and be there for them every day.
Just be there and have fun. I was like, we're winning. Yeah. We're going to try and win.
Oh, really? You developed that attitude, huh?
Yeah, we're going to win.
You're not just showing up and just punching the clock. Huh? You're here to win, right?
Yeah. We beat some teams. Like, we beat, El Monte was like 5-0. We beat them, knocked them out of the playoffs. Because you could only have maybe like one loss at the time in order to go to the playoffs. They only took like the top team in the conference. We didn't make the playoffs. We were like 3-3 or 4-3.
Yeah, but you were supposed to be 0-7, right?
Yeah, we were supposed to be 0-7. One game I remember, we had a 2-minute offense, and I remember Jude turns to me and he's like, "Hey man, run that screen there to Simpson, right?" And so we sprint to the right, throw back tight end screen. He catches it, scores, game over, we win. And it's just like, just an explosion from the kids. Like, man, this is cool. That feeling to win. And I know some of those kids I haven't seen lately, but I know that, if I see them or they see me, they'll recognize me.
They remember.
They'll remember. And even though I call them the Bad News Bears,
they remember.
Yeah,
you guys won.
They remember that we won games. We didn't end the season at 0 and 6 or 7, whatever the season is. That was 04. Then 05, I went back to Dakota Wesleyan to finish school and coach with under Brad Pohl. I was coached there for 3 seasons, and I came back and coached at East LA for 1. Coached at Temple City High School with Anthony White. And then I went back to Dakota Wesleyan in 2010. Coached there as the pass game coordinator. And then Ross Simple took over. I was offensive coordinator there for 2 seasons. We went 8-3. Just missed the playoffs. Again, that was the best record that they had in like 20 years since the 90 teams. The 90s, They were 10-0 and 9-1. So we had the best record, and the best record in that conference, the GPAC conference, which was new. So they used to be in the kind of a Dakota conference with Black Hills, whenever. And so if you know anything about South Dakota football, that's like, some good football out in that Midwest. And so that was the best. And then after that, went to School of Mines, Division II school. Did that for a year, and then I got out of coaching. I said, I'm done. I need to revamp, who I am, reevaluate. Do I really want to continue doing this? And I stepped out for a year, and I covered football, like media. I worked for NCSA, and then I worked for a sleeper recruit out of Georgia, and I covered football. So I would go to these camps. I was in LA and Atlanta and South Dakota, and and I would go to these college campuses. University of South Carolina, they would have these prospect camps. Owen Popo was, a kid that was like an 8th grader. He's now playing linebacker for Alabama. King Makuta, he's over at Auburn. So all these kids that I would cover, I'd get to know them and interview them and talk to them, but I just had stepped away, from football. And then my nephew Arthur, who played college football at Dakota Wesleyan, he was done. He was finishing up school, and he ends up in Lower Brule. And Lower Brule is a Native American reservation, and there they played 9-man football. But he calls me up and says, "Hey, man, I need some help with kids. We're going for the flag football program. Let's get it going." And they had already had some things, going every now and then, but nothing consistent. And so I ended up talking to the superintendent, who says, "Well, I don't got nothing for you, no job, nothing." I said, "All right, cool. I get on the highway. I'm headed back." And then he calls me. He said, "Hey, man, I just had to let go of 2 people. I got 2 positions open. Middle school. Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah, man. I'll teach the middle school." And so I ended up going out to Lower Brule just to help with football. I just wanted to help. "Yeah, I'll help with football, man." And then the head coach decides, "Oh, I'm done. You can take over. It's your program." I was like, "Oh my god." So I ended up taking over a 9-man program, and we were like, I don't know, 3-6, and 3-4. Football wasn't really a big priority. They didn't have a weight room. They had, again, a youth program, but like a lot of the time, the kids' first experience for football was high school. They didn't have a youth tackle program like they do now. So that was something that we did. We started flag football. We started youth football, like 4th, 5th, and 6th. Tackle football. We had the Redskins organization.
You guys called them the Redskins?
Yeah. No longer the Redskins. They're the Washington.
The football club.
The football team. The Washington football team. They helped us out with like helmets and different equipment that we needed to get that going. And then FCA Brian Hansen helped us fund a small weight room. It's probably as big as the garage, where we can fit 2 platforms, get all our rubber weights, dumbbells, kettlebells, bands. We just put all that together. And now, the kids are lifting weights. Now they're pumping some iron, and which they weren't doing that before I got there. And it wasn't because, anything that I did, but I knew we needed, that, hey, if we want to get to the next level, and we want to be successful in football and take that to the next sport, and so, that was huge, to just have that thing implemented, and then I just ended last year, 2019, we went to the finals, and we lost to our rival that was like 15 miles away. And we played them twice. We lost them the first time by a score, and then we just got blown out in the championship game. And it was a great experience for my kids, that to see that, but to make it to a championship game, and be there again and not win it. It's still an experience, It's just like, and that for me. Football-wise, to finally, again, see it all come full circle, the hard work, the hours put into it for the kids to get to that point of getting to a championship, understanding it's not, just competing for a league. It's not about winning the first round. It's like, hey, getting the championship. To say you got there. And no matter the outcome, the kids are always going to talk about that, getting to the championship. And, I ended up, at the end of it saying goodbye. I'm going to look for some other opportunities, and didn't work out as planned. But now relocated back to California and coaching with Jude right now. And we haven't coached together in 16 seasons. That's a long time. That's a lot of football in between, man. A lot of football in between.
Different experiences, too.
Different. different, man. Coaching in South Dakota is not as again as big as they think it is when you compare it to California, Texas, Florida. You know, they do have a traveling team, the South Dakota Miners, that does travel around and they play Texas teams. Actually, they do really well. But that's again what they've done. They adopted the culture of football and they've made it big out in Sioux Falls area.
So kids come from all over to play there?
Yeah, you do. That's where Nate Gary, he was playing today for the Eagles. He's from Sioux Falls.
No, safety. Played in Nebraska.
Yep, played in Nebraska. Yep. Then you have Nash Hutmaker. He's at Nebraska. You know, he's a South Dakota kid. You have Goddard, tight end for the Eagles. So, you know, there's that's happening, right? I mean, you have D1 players coming out of South Dakota. NFLers coming out of South Dakota. Chad Greenway is another guy. Ben Lieber is another guy, that South Dakota guy. So, and those teams like Minnesota, they pick them up. You know, Thielen's, well, he's not a South Dakota guy, but, you know, small school guy. And in that Midwest, you get a lot of those small schools. They get some good ball players. Guys that get overlooked, but, football changes the culture at the school. You know, football changes a lot for a community. Yeah. And here they are trying to shake it up.
Yeah, they want to disband it or limit it. And it's like anything. We always talk about like rallying the community and having that stuff. I know some of the biggest things at St. Gabriel, we were at St. Gabriel, was going to the finals and doing those things. When we finally, I know, I'm probably thinking about it. So I want to ask you a question, Coach. When did you kind of see, I know I have a moment myself, but when did you kind of see, like, at San Gabriel, like, where you felt like that you finally got us to shift into the right direction?
It wasn't even football. It was that Big Bear trip.
Oh, boy.
You know what I saw? I saw a lot of the cliques go down. I saw a lot of people getting together. A lot of people were backing other people up. People were helping each other. And it was all because everybody wanted to be with us on that trip. You know what I mean? It's like, how many of you guys ever been to Big Bear? How many of you guys ever been to the mountains? How many of you guys ever did any of that stuff? And so, like, everybody wanted to go to that trip, so it's like everyone stopped being selfish or thinking about themselves, and they wanted to be part of the team. So I think, remember when we stayed after at that pizza place and we played the video games? And I saw people that had money letting the other guys not have money come in and play. That's when I knew the barriers were down. That's when I knew you guys, as a team, I knew that team was now going to play for each other and not, like, you didn't want to let him down. He didn't want to let him down. You didn't even know this kid, but now you're counting on this kid, and you're pulling for him, and you wanted him to be successful. You wanted him to win. Even when we were doing it against each other, where that first year you guys wanted to kill each other and make each other look bad because you hated each other. You know what I mean? It's like it wasn't a team. But after that Big Bear trip, when we came back, that's when I noticed, man, it was a whole different experience with you guys, because I knew that everybody had I guess everybody, so we were together for since Friday till Sunday, right? Yeah. And we spent Friday night, Saturday night. Remember all you guys? Remember when I was going to separate because we didn't have enough guys that would fit, and you guys said, "No, we're all going to the cabin." Yeah. Right? And you guys all made room, right? And then when I went to look and inspect the cabin the next morning, it wasn't a blown up disaster. You guys kept it clean compared to the year before when you guys blew up the motel rooms. That's what I knew, because it was like you guys cared about stuff. Yeah. You guys didn't want to let me down by blowing up the cabin, because knowing I'd probably have to pay, whatever to fix whatever you guys had broken. You know what I mean? And everybody made room for everybody. Yeah. I mean, think about that. I mean, you guys were the guys that slept in that cabin or didn't sleep, right? Yeah.
We had the hierarchy, Yeah. Some guys earned their way onto
to what level?
Yeah. There's definitely that piece of it of like the older guys and being in charge. And
but then the older guys also not just being the bullies. You know how you can be an older guy and be a bully, But also, like you got to give the young ones or the little ones that are trying, and you got to reward that effort, right? But sometimes there's teams where there's just bullies, right? And they don't want the underclassmen to make them look bad. They don't want the underclassmen to take another senior's job, right? But when that gets broken down by the leaders, and it's just everybody's contributing, then that's when you win.
Yeah. Team building. That's important. I know that. There's a lot of. I've installed that. In programs and trying to do something before. Well, they used to have Hell Week. They don't have Hell Week anymore.
Yeah.
Can't say Hell Week. But that team building is important. And there's a lot of different ideas out there. A lot of great ideas. When I was at Westland, we used to take the seniors out to Isabel, South Dakota. You're talking about out nowhere. There's nowhere you can hear coyotes coming from miles away, right? Because they smell you, so they know you have food and stuff like that. So we would take the kids out, and we would have activities for 3 days, right? Activities. There was like a reading session. They would read a book, like a Band of Brothers book. They would read, or Wild at Heart. They would read some books like that. We would feed them. We would take them out and shoot archery. Take them out shoot shotguns or 22s, clay shooting. Go out and shoot prairie dogs. We would send them on hikes. We'd send them on a mile run. They would get their conditioning in. We would take them swimming. We would do all of that with the seniors and the leadership group to get them connected and bonded, and that was always a cool experience because, like you said, those barriers are broken down. You learn a mental part. The mental part of football. That's a breaking point of quitting or not. That's just what it is. We would send the kids out and on a midnight hike. They would drive them out in the van,
drop them off,
and they only give them flashlights, and they had to hike their way back to the house. They could see the house because they had lights, right? But they had to bushwhack, and they bushwhack for 2 hours. Okay?
Did you get machetes or no?
Nope, no machetes, just flashlights.
Long ones?
just the handle. It was funny because you could see them. You can see them as they're running because they hear something. They're running around. You can see just the flashlights going all over the place. But they had to stick together, right? Because if you didn't stick together with the guy with the flashlight, you're lost.
Yeah.
You're lost. And so they would show up and just be laughing about who got scared or
what they heard.
A
wolf was chasing me.
There was, we know we heard the coyote. We know we heard a bear. It's like, man, there aren't bears here for miles. And they would have a great time, and then it was, like I said, breaking down the barriers and creating that team atmosphere and leadership. And so a lot of times, we would do things like that. And then when we brought kids into camp, it had that leadership. You had those guys they knew that had gone through something. That one day, they're going to go through it too, right? And so then we would do the pool stuff, team building. We would do all that, belly flop. We used to have a belly flop contest there at Weston. So all the freshmen that came in, all the freshmen had to go through the belly flop initiation. Yeah, they would go and everybody would go and belly flop. And if you were a transfer or you're a new guy, you had to do it.
Because you were new in the program.
You knew the program. You had to belly flop. So
sensitive now, man. They call that hazing.
Yeah.
We didn't. Oh, there was hazing going on.
It just wasn't sponsored.
Yeah.
Well, I got a question. I'll go with you first. You guys mentioned that, you guys just showed up. You didn't even expect to win, right?
Yeah.
But now, you don't even see that old pass, do you? You walk on the field, you expect to win, right?
Expect to win all the time now. And it's not just, the best part about it is it's not just football. It's in everything. It's in every aspect of my life, every aspect of my family. When I go to teach, I know they tease me because they always tease me because I'll shut my phone off or I'll teach PE. But, I'll do those things and they always tease me about, what are you trying to be a teacher of the year? So, yeah, I want to be the best at everything I do, and preparation is everything. And I learned that. Really, those years with you, and it just kind of carried on. Like I said, fortunate after that, that we went to. You steered us in the right direction and going with the right coaches and the right people to invest in our life. Because now, I mean, without structure, I don't even know how I would function anymore. Just look at and I still preach this to that day, is to the players that I have or kids that I mentor, is success and confidence comes from preparation. And a lot of times when you come from homes of poverty or broken homes, or
no structure,
your circumstances are bad, it's really easy to say, I'm a product of my environment, I can't do something. When as opposed to, I tell them, confidence comes from preparation. If you prepare, you're going to be successful. It's inevitable. Something gives. If you work hard, you do the right things, and you prepare for what you're getting into, whether it's school, whether it's football, whether it's business or whatever. If you're preparing the right way and you're doing what you're supposed to, you will be successful, and you got to understand that. So I know now, I mean, in any aspect of my life, when I take it, I know I'm going to be successful because of my preparation. And when I know I'm going to be unsuccessful, I'm going to fail, as I know that I didn't prepare and I just went out there and wing, just said, let me do it, and
wing it.
Yeah, wing it, and I've known, and you see it. I mean, every result you get in those different aspects comes from that, and you know whether you put in the time and the effort, and when you didn't, the result. It don't surprise me anymore, is what it is, and it took people to speak that into my life and existence for me to believe it, because I did grow up where success wasn't something that came to a lot of our people that that came from where we came from. I mean, some of the names we named, going in, some of those guys are in jail. Some of those guys, unfortunately, have passed. Some of those guys probably still live with their parents, or living paycheck to paycheck, or whatever the case is. And, they don't have the same opportunities. And, I always tell kids, you can't feel, I mean, and I know this might sound bad, but I tell the kids, you can't feel sorry. You got to understand, like, there's I said, success and unsuccess, and there are people that are unsuccessful. That's a choice too. It's not just, you're also blessed, but I say, the people who are blessed are usually the ones that put in the time and the effort, and they go out and don't have a crutch and don't use excuses. They live off of that. Like, I'm going to prepare to make sure that I'm successful. So those are those things that I love. Like, that's a message I will continue to speak, and I know just continue to try to empower people with that stuff, because I know how much it meant to me and in my life. So.
Well, that's the same question for you.
I'm going to think about this for a bit.
Yeah, because I mean, like now, like you show up to, like, say, whatever team you're with, right? You don't walk in there thinking you're going to lose, right? I mean, there's, you know what I mean? Like,
not.
I mean, it's like you understood what it was, the why you got there, why I was so confident when I showed up, right? Because I was always preparing and always was ready, and I always wanted to give you guys the best game plan for you guys to understand it, to execute it, so you guys had a chance, or not a chance, but I was expecting to win. And I mean, both you guys came from an environment, or no one had ever taught you that, if you do this and this, you can get here, And now it's like you guys both live it and breathe it. I mean, shit, you took the program that I got to the first round and went to the finals. You took a program that was never, not even breathing, and put life into it and took it to a championship game. So, I mean, you don't have that success without, having that mindset where, I'm here to win. And it's not just the win-win. That's like the end product, right? It's just like, it's my process that gets me to what I'm going to get to. But you have that same, like, that's your process, or what do you think got you there, or what made you understand it? Now you go in any situation, you're going to be the best at, or you want to be the best at it.
Right. Yeah, and I think the competitive nature, that I've had, that I've like fostered, knowing that I'm competitive going into a sport that I love, that I know football. I know X and O's. We can get up there and draw it up all day long, right? Get on the board, and then that same formula, as I talked about before, that same formula, and I apply it to, whatever job or career that I'm in, and it's always good. It's always successful, and so, why change that idea? Why you adapt and adjust and evolve, you do all that, but like there's a formula to it, and going into every team that I'm working with, or no matter what it is, we're competing to win, and if we don't win, then it's a lesson. I'm not a loser, so we don't lose. It's a lesson, man. So either you win or a lesson.
Coaching moment.
Coaching moment. Win or a lesson. I'm not a loser. I don't lose. So, but I've just taken that and find a way to win. And like you said, whether it's the off season or in other preparation, or don't put yourself in that position again. I always think about. We lost the football game by inches. We lost 49-42, and I believe if we would have scored, we would have went for 2 and won it, 50-49. So that play is always sticking in my head. So if it ever happens again, we're not in that situation again. It's a totally different outcome. We get to the 6-yard line with time running out, and we spike it. We get the personnel group in there to run the play that we've been working on all week to get the touchdown. And then the 2-point conversion that we've been working on all week, we run that, that we've been practicing every single day in our 2-minute drill. We're running that play. So, those scenarios, the formulas, things like that I've, had to learn a lesson from, like it's here. It's here. And when it comes around again, I'm not making that same mistake. And the same thing in the workforce, same thing. I made a lot of mistakes in the workforce, saying the wrong thing or... speaking out of order sometimes.
My filter doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah. I was one time I was going to get fired in like my second week as the football coach in Lower Brule because I was insubordinate, is what I was told, because I mowed an area to practice on. In the softball field, I mowed an area that the softball field wasn't used. So that was insubordination because I didn't go through the chain of command. So I said, well, next time I'll go through the chain of command. It's just things needed to get done. Right?
Apologize later.
Do it, apologize later. And so I do things like that every now and then. But I've learned, there's chain of command. Don't go around your supervisor, or if you're an assistant, don't go around your head coach. Don't do any of that crap. Go through the chain of command. Go through your supervisor, whoever's ahead of you, because that's the way it's supposed to be, I think. Even if you think like, hey, I shouldn't be an assistant. I should be the head guy. Wait your turn. Wait your turn. That's it. You get the opportunity if you're that good or that confident. You'll get the chance, to be in those positions. But don't do it wrong. Don't do it the way it's supposed to be done, man. Have that opportunity. So, but yeah, that's when I go into it. That's what I'm thinking about. If I entry level, I'm going to take your job at the end of it. That's my thought process. I don't know. It doesn't always happen that way. But
yeah, but you're thinking it, right? It's like inbred. I mean, it's like even before you step into the situation, you already thought that, I'm going to be the best one here. I'm going to do the best I can. No one's going to be better than me. Right. That's how I deal in business now. Yeah. Same way. And like so many people are lazy. So many people want to cut corners. So people want to punch a clock and get paid for nothing, right? Yeah. And if you have the attitude that we had, right, in the work process, get it done, go put your work in, work extra, show up early, stay late, right? You drop a pass. Next day after practice, every day after practice, he's begging people to stay after. The quarterback has to go do his homework, be with his girlfriend. He grabs the backup quarterback. I need 20 more passes. Both of you guys, it's like you do that in any situation in life, and you can usually beat a lot of people. I mean, you beat top 10% just by that attitude.
Yeah.
That's the secret to life.
That's the secret. I was
successful
over these last couple of weeks working construction, right? Busting concrete, right? Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I've done a lot of different odd jobs. I've used to put in sprinkler systems. I've done stucco. I've done a lot of different things, and I've done landscaping. I've been a teacher. I've been college football coach. I've been a bartender. I've done a lot of different.
You've been a bartender? Yeah, I didn't know that.
I've worn a lot of different hats. Right? I've done sales, cold calls. I've done marketing. I've done work with the recreation. I've wore a lot of different hats, and going into this last couple of weeks was, I'm going to learn as much as I can. I want to learn this. I want to learn working with pavers. That's what it is. I just want to learn this. I want to see how they operate, and so every chance that I had to try and learn, whether I was shoveling type 2 gravel and throwing it into a wheelbarrow, I was also watching the foreman measure, the pavers and cutting them and fitting them around the pool, and then I'm wheelbarrowing them out and, learning how these guys, even something simple of like dumping concrete. Was I doing it right the first time? No. I was not doing it right. Right? Then you watch the guy who was doing it right and making it easier on himself. Right? Work smarter, not harder. And you're just watching everything. And, I don't know how to mix concrete. Right? So the guys mix concrete, and I'm shoveling again, and I'm watching them mix concrete. And it's like, oh, that's how it's done. The process. Like,
that's how he does that. Like, he's like right on with the boop boop. So it's like double. It's a double and then a throw and then a double because. I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Because then you get the half of it, then the rest of it. But you see how he was doing that? Kind of like when you're telling, like release, right? Get your hands up. You want to go outside, you grab this hand to go this way. He's like.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
We're so technical, huh? As coaches, we're technical.
And you learn that, and you apply that, and then the process of it, right? You figure out a system. So with a jackhammer, you just don't go in jacking everything up. You're just like, no, you don't do that, or the chisel, you're just not, here and there. I mean, there's a way to do it. There's, it's like, to me, it's
there's science to it.
Yeah, science to it. It's music in motion. Like they're not just randomly doing that. Like, even though as random as like construction seems, you go in demo, you're just breaking stuff. No, there's a pattern to it. There's a pattern to it. The guy's punching holes, pop up, pop up, pop up, pop up. And then he's going around and they're, when they're breaking the concrete, they're all the same. So you can pick them up a certain way and dump them in the wheelbarrow. It's not just random, there's a whole system to it. There's a whole formula to it. And I was just, blown away. And, at the foreman, who I think is like a masonry genius, as he's cutting all the pieces and fitting them around the pool. And I just learned so much about, if I wanted to be where he was at, could I do that? Absolutely. Is it going to take 2 weeks? No. No. It's going to take longer than that.
2 years to get an apprenticeship. Yes. Yeah.
It's going to take that long. And, but what I had learned from that was, it was great. Also took me to a breaking point too. That on Wednesday, when I must have busted about, 15, 20 wheelbarrows of concrete, and you're going, have to wheel them around and take them down the hill and then dump them and then come back and do it again. And these are big pieces of concrete that had been broken, right?
What was the weight?
I would say each piece of concrete was probably 15, to 20 pounds.
And how many in the wheelbarrow?
You probably get about
4 pieces, 5 pieces?
A little bit more than that, right? Maybe like eight pieces in there, right? Because you had to make sure you top load
160, 180 pounds.
So, and then you're shrugging it.
Shoulders.
Shrugging it.
Back.
Yep. And then you can't go too high with the wheelbarrow because then it has a little lip that hits the concrete or hits another lip, and you have to have little makeshift ramps. And I remember I went too high and I hit the concrete
boom, and I tipped over, and then the wheelbarrow like threw me sideways, and I was trying to gather my feet, and it was soft dirt and concrete, so I slipped, boom, fell on the ground.
Yeah, the wheelbarrow was empty.
Yeah, it was done. All the concrete that spilled over made a big mess, and all I could do was just laugh and say, well, you know better than to lift the wheelbarrow up, right? Because you have to have that technique. But I was, just like trying to hurry, and when you hurry, sometimes you don't always do what you're supposed to do. And it was about 9:50. We had started at 7:30, busting the concrete. Right? So from 7:30 to 9:50 was wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow, picking up concrete. My fingers are all cut up. My gloves are torn. My hands stayed stuck like this.
You couldn't straighten them.
I couldn't straighten them. My back was hurting. And I dumped off that last load. And I said, man, I'm done. I'm telling myself, like, you're done. You're going to quit, man. Just quit. I was telling myself, just quit. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to walk in there and say I'm done. just say, hey, guys, thanks for the opportunity, but I'm done. And I remember taking the wheelbarrow in there, putting it down, and the foreman's like, lunchtime! And I was like, oh my God. What timing, right? Like, I was broken. I was about ready to quit. I haven't quit anything, who knows how long. Right? I can't even remember when I quit. And I was about ready to quit and walk away, and then that happens. And I was recharged, I was recharged because I didn't break. As much as I wanted to, and I was saying it, but I didn't break, I didn't quit, I didn't walk away. I had lunch, came back for another 2-3 hours, busting concrete again, just willing it out. And at that point, it was easy. There was no thought of quitting after that.
Wow.
That never came back into mind. It was just, hey, I know I got this much time. I got to pace myself. I got to, make sure I'm doing it right, not falling over, hitting the lip. I got to make sure that's, all getting done. Man, but it taught me so much. It wasn't even about going and making money. It was more about me trying to break my own spirit.
Your will.
My will. Yeah, my will to keep on, man. And so, those things, we do that to our kids, right? We're like with our football program, conditioning, right? Yeah.
See where I can take you.
Yeah.
How far I can bend you before you break.
You have to.
Yeah, it's part of it's part of the process. Definitely teaches you a lot about people and how they think, what they operate off of, and what motivates them, what inspires them. I know that was always something I was always curious about. I know what motivated me, what inspired me when I would play and when I would do things. So I'd always like to see the individual players or kids that I thought would quit on me during the season. I would try to get them, as bad as that sounds, but try to get them to do it before we even started the season. So, I knew ahead of time, hey, this kid isn't a kid I want to invest my trust in. But you'd also be very surprised on the kids that persevere through that stuff. And
sometimes it's the ones you don't think.
Yeah, they end up turning into leaders, and it's really cool. Like you said, the process of it is really cool. I always enjoyed that part of coaching.
Yeah. How do you learn? Learn from the process. Or are you learning? Some kids are learning, some not. You teach them how to learn, right? And then nowadays, learning is very different because it's shifting. Technology, right? No more books. Everything's all visual, pictographs, audio, right? And we look at that and say, how do we change with it or not? Do we,
Yeah, you have to innovate.
You have to, right? You talked about earlier with the workforce. It's where it's going to. I know that teachers are dealing with it now. Businesses. What tools do we need to give our kids now? That are going to help them in the workforce. Because what we do, football, is football, but like we know that it's bigger than football. It's life beyond football, right? It's the next chapter, and now teaching our kids how to be better men, better women. Used to have a couple of female football players. There's more now than there used to be. There's pro football, women coaches, and so with that, teaching them everything we can, and that's important. That's important as coaches to give back, to the kids, because when football is done, for some it's done. And I know that there's a young man that he went off to the military. He was only with us for 1 year in Lower Brule, but he says what we taught him in that 1 year just helped him, be who he is in the military. And I thought, I never looked at it like that, and that started to shift and change my thought process of what I'm really giving back to football, with the kids and when they move on. So. Before it used to be like, hey, well, let's try and find you a scholarship. Now it's like, well, let's get you ready for whatever, workforce, military, fatherhood. You want to go to trade school, 4-year. What do you want to do? Let's get you ready for it. So like the football lessons are all kind of encompassed now into that. There's some guys that are out there doing it, and they've been doing it like that for a long time. And coaches, and so I think what we're doing now, this platform, hopefully that coaches want to hear more of it, and we can talk about it more and get some of these guys on X and O and really explore this platform to get our message out there, get the information. So yeah, man. I see you looking at your clock, Coach.
I'm older than you guys.
What time we got here?
It's time to call session 1,
there
and then
all right.
Let's see what we can do for session 2.
Yeah, so this is the Regular Guys podcast here with
Gary Rona,
Judo Oliva,
Zeke Prado, brought to you by 365 Athletics, and stay tuned for the next podcast. We'll have a little bit more about sports, culture, food. Maybe have a guest show up. We don't know yet where we're taking this, but this is the first steps here to our podcast. We enjoy the process, and we're out.